appealing of the cabins, which fits with the use. So I'm not sure I understand how any more further action can be brought.
Well, I believe an appeal is an appeal to a determination, so it must be dealt with in accordance.
This has been an appeal? This has been an appeal to the Article 78?
Not to the Article 78.
Glenn made his determination subsequent to that, and now this appeal is that determination that use is not the proper use. So she's appealing Glenn's determination.
Which was after the Article 78. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so we don't really know what her rationale is for appealing it then, do we?
That's what the hearing is for.
Yep.
Okay.
That is correct. That is what we will be having a hearing for. I have two hands raised.
I got one.
Now. So, Harry, I see your hand, but I've got two virtual hands being raised as well. They've had them raised for a little bit, so I want to give them a chance to speak first, and we will get to you in a moment, Harry. And Len, I see you had your hand raised as well.
Yeah, I have a problem here. I agree with Janet. We don't have a site plan. The applicant says the site plan indicates a motel with guest cabins, but we don't have the site plan to look at that.
Well,
I don't see how we can vote for a public hearing when we don't have all the information.
And I agree with you guys that you guys will need the site plan before doing the hearing, but technically, this really doesn't need to be put on an agenda under the statute. Once the notice is filed, they can, within the reasonable time, schedule it and give public notice. So it is, anytime there's a notice of appeal, there's an automatic right to the hearing. Like, it's basically for the hearing to take place. So theoretically, they didn't even need to schedule it for the agenda for you guys to schedule it for a public hearing. Basically, it could have been put out as long as notice and proper public notice and everything was given, just scheduled initially for a public hearing as an appeal.
Right, except for the zoning board to even have this discussion, we need to know what we're discussing. And we don't have the site plan in front of us. Background or not, even in a public hearing, we should be able to come equipped with some kind of information here, right?
Well, I understand, but basically you guys really don't have the power to say we can't schedule for a public hearing.
No, I think we should, but I think we also need a chance to discuss it.
Without a doubt.
We can't do that unless we do it in a meeting. We can't do it in this meeting because we don't have the documentation. All we have is a letter. So we really can't have any discussion.
We also don't know what the appeal is for. There's nothing here that says what she's appealing. It just says appeal change in land use determination. What does just say what the rationale is?
Because the determination was that the property was being the special use permit was granted by the planning board approving the use of the property as a cabin development, and the determination was made that the structures were mobile cabins. Whatever mobile cabins are.
And Glenn is agreed.
No, Glenn made that determination. Lynn Bailey is appealing it.
Yes, and what does she want?
I don't believe the determination or the appeal has anything to do with what the actual cabin structures are. It is to the special use permit that's being requested, not the act of whether or not the cabins are cabins or RVs or anything like that.
Right. But
so it's the land use.
Was there a letter along with this?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was there a letter along with this?
Yeah, I'm looking at actually the information that was provided me, and it looks like Ms. Bailey's attorney on March 5th gave a supplement for her appeal to the board.
We need that information.
And it appears that there is a site plan. There is
we need that information.
So I believe that the point when we will schedule this for a public hearing, and all that information, I'm hoping, will be provided to us at that time before the next meeting, so that we have everything on our table. The public shall be able to give their interpretation and their feelings on this, as well as the applicant as well as the folks who are being, the people requesting the special site plan.
What is the
Sorry,
big
not
hurry
special.
to have the public hearing? Can't we just have the meeting again and understand what? I'm totally confused.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Larry.
The motel and the cabins, are they there already?
No.
Are they planned?
Well, there were cabins there. I believe they're gone now. And the space will be completely redone, but I can't say that for sure. I'd like to just take a moment to receive the comment from the public who have had their hands raised for a moment. Umar Sheikh, do I have you verbally?
Yes, you do. Good evening.
Excellent. Hello.
Hello. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board. I'm actually the attorney for Arizona Hudson Valley LLC, the owner of the site. And I just wanted to take a moment to address the board. I can see, based on the conversation, that there's a lot of confusion regarding Ms. Bailey's appeal. And I just wanted to make 2 points. And I understand Mr. Jankowski's position that this matter does need to go forward for a public hearing. From Arizona's point of view, we'd like that addressed as soon as possible to remove any further impediments to the site development, which has now been approved, gone through an Article 78, and now is subject to this additional appeal. I do note that we were not notified at all that Arizona's property was on tonight's agenda, which might not have been required under procedure, but certainly the way we found out that we were on the agenda just was a little bit disconcerting. And the second point I'd like to make is I've read Ms. Svensson's letter in support of Ms. Bailey's appeal, and right before tonight's hearing had the opportunity to submit our own letter by email to the Board of Appeals, which I'm sure that you'll be able to have a chance to review in due course before the public hearing. But my understanding of the basis for Ms. Bailey's appeal is that after Mr. Hofstetter made a determination that the cabins that are being developed are in fact cabins, and that the site can be designated as a cabin development under the town's code, that Ms. Bailey's claiming that they should properly, or at least her claim is that they are properly motels as opposed to cabins. And in our letter to the Board of Appeals, I point out that the argument is flawed under the town zoning code. So under the town zoning code, a motel is either a building or buildings. And a building is defined under the code as a structure that is permanently affixed to the land. Arizona's cabins, as is well known to Mr. Hofstetter, and I think was the basis of his determination, Arizona's cabins are not permanently affixed to the land, and therefore they cannot be motels. And so for that reason, we believe that Mr. Hofstetter's determination in January was proper, and that this appeal should be summarily dismissed by the board, although I do understand it has to go to a public hearing. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board this evening.
Thank you very much. I just have to read your name as it's spelled on the Zoom site is correct.
Yes, first name Umar, U-M-A-R, last name Sheikh, S-H-E-I-K-H.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lynn, I see you have your hand raised, but I've got one more person here.
I still feel we're missing, like he just spoke, we're missing that letter. We're missing the letter supporting.
Well, this is why we're not going to discuss this in detail, and I feel that this is a matter that we probably need to send to a public hearing, and at that time, given the time frame of another month, we have the chance to receive all the information we need and ask further questions during a public hearing. But very quickly, I've got a JB here who has had his hand raised for quite some time. JB?
Yeah, it's Jordan Bem. Sorry, I've taken this from my cell phone. I am actually the owner, so Mr. Umar Sheikh is the attorney for my for my company, including the property. So I actually have nothing else to add. It was very on point of where we stand on this.
Okay, excellent. And Lynn, you have your hand raised as well?
Good evening. All right, let's try to clarify this. Yes, we had an Article 78, and it came back, and and Glenn originally had determined that the property was a vacation resort. Then there was the determination, and he made the determination that the RV should be treated like cabins because that's how they're being used. Which you shouldn't, if that's how they're being used, then it doesn't matter, if it's a motel that has structures and that's how they're being used, it's the same either way you look at it. The other point is that it can't be a cabin development because it does not meet all the requirements of, I'll give you the code, some part of the code, which is in my letter. So I hope that you'll have all of that stuff to look at. 210-4011 Section E, required recreation area. So we feel that that what was approved actually constitutes what a motel site plan would look like and not a cabin development. I hope that clarifies it a little bit.
It clarifies, and again, this is why I say that if we schedule this for a public hearing for the next meeting, this gives the board proper time to receive all the documents received within the last couple weeks that were not received within the 2-week time frame, and gives us ample time to review, possibly make site visits, give everybody a chance to gather their thoughts. Certainly our board has expressed that they don't have enough information on this matter at the time, and this is why we will touch on this. But let's hear from the board. I see, Abby, you've got your hand raised in person.
In person. My question is to Lynn then. Is there a difference to her, being a neighbor, as to whether it's a vacation resort or a motel with guest cabins?
Absolutely. First of all, a motel is not permitted in this district. It's not a commercial district. The site is in the middle or the fulcrum of a residential neighborhood, and they're proposing like 58 guest cabins of some form or another, which would bring a whole lot of people there on a very regular basis, and will disrupt the peace and harmony of the neighborhood.
So you don't really, your point is that you don't want this development, period.
No, my point is that it's an overdevelopment. My point is that it's an overdevelopment, that they have expanded it beyond what the code allows for cabin developments, and that it could possibly be a vacation resort, which would have a larger setback and fewer units.
Thank you.
Originally, now it's 54. What was it before?
14, 16.
It went from 14 to 54?
I believe that's approximately correct.
Are you talking about 14 that was previously there as it operated as a vacation resort?
Right, there were 14 cabins. And there was a little motel, I guess, a hotel or something. It was a hotel with some rooms in it.
I've attended many weddings with 150 plus people there in the past.
Right, but that's not every single day. I mean, honestly.
Correct. That is correct.
No, that is not every single day, but I apologize for interjecting. But when we purchased the property and actually had the books of the property, there were over 60 weddings in 1 year.
Which year?
Okay, good to know, but I still don't have information.
This feud from Miss Bailey has nothing to do with what's actually permitted or not permitted. This was an existing hotel prior. It's not a development. It's basically an expansion or redevelopment, or however you would like to call it. This is because she does not like the project.
This is still, as a member of the zoning board, I'm just trying to get the information, okay? I don't want anything characterized as a fight or a feud or anything like that. I want to see a site.
And with all due respect, I think that these are conversations that are best held during a public hearing.
However,
I don't think we have to speak on this too much more till we have the opportunity to review all the documents that are presented before our board, and we should save any type of face till that time.
Excuse me, Josh, I disagree with you. We have always discussed the merits after the applicant has come to us. Before we do it, we request a public hearing. And so at this point, we're just trying to get the information as to why this has even come before us. And I don't think that this is necessarily should wait until a public hearing.
can I make a bridge between the two of you? I think you're both right. I feel like this is a very important matter for us to discuss as a board and look at all the information before it goes to a public hearing and then have it go to a public hearing. Josh, had we had all the information in front of us, I would not be suggesting this. But, you know, given the nature of this and given that there's, you know, there was already an Article 78 on this, there's a certain gravity here, and obviously it's a large undertaking. I feel like it would be really good for us to be able to meet as a board one more time and have this on our agenda and look at it as a board and then have a public hearing after that so that we were already clear on the ins and outs of it for us.
Yeah, the information points are difficult to digest when they're coming from the interested parties.
Yeah, so.
You know, directly, verbally.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I don't have any problem with that. However, being that I'm unclear as to the procedural points of this, let me refer to the town attorney and make sure that we are not overstepping our bounds by requesting that we, what would be the proper terminology, hold this application open for another month till we are able to, as a board, review all the information and then grant a public hearing, which then that public hearing will put us into June.
May?
Sorry, it's been a long day.
May.
Mr. Matthew Jankowski, do I have you present still?
Yes, basically, so the difference between most of your applications are applications for variances. This is actually a notice of appeal. So there's a different appellate procedure that follows. Basically, you need to set a reasonable date upon receiving the notice of appeal for the public hearing. That's what the statute says. So if you guys feel that either the notice of appeal is incomplete, you guys don't have enough information and can still set that within the 60 days between now and 2 months from now, that's a reasonable date, I guess you would be within the statute. But as I said before, theoretically, this does not even, need to be on an agenda. You receive a notice of appeal procedurally, within a reasonable period of time, you guys schedule it for the appellate hearing. And under our statute, the only requirement is it's got to be within a reasonable date for the hearing, reasonable period of time. So upon receiving this, and I think the notice of appeal, my understanding, the date that it was filed was not too long ago. So I guess theoretically you could argue that it's still within a reasonable period of time.
Well,
for the appeal, it was filed on the 25th of February. So
it seems like since what you're saying about incomplete, I think that's what we have here, so, and if it's within a reasonable period of time, if it was February 26th, then we're not really pushing it.
But I would make clear that you guys need to discuss and figure out what additional information you are requesting from the applicant to complete the application, and that information is properly submitted within a reasonable period of time so that you guys,
Right,
can review the entire application.
okay.
Well,
And
can we
furthermore,
have a-
we're probably putting once we have the should we have a public hearing, we most likely will have to make I'm assuming a determination at that time, as opposed to seeking an extension, based on
Within
the
60
time frame
days of the public hearing, you guys need to make a decision.
Within 60 days, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, can we have a discussion, say, before the public hearing next month? So that we don't hold this up for a month, but that we get all the information we need, have a discussion, a board discussion, and then open the public hearing? Is that possible?
I think we should.
I don't know if that flies under the open meetings law, but maybe I'm.
No, I'm asking Matt. I'm asking Matt.
Okay.
You're asking whether you can have a discussion as a board prior to opening the
Yes.
public hearing at the same meeting?
Yes.
So as long as it's at the meeting, you guys can discuss without taking public commentary and then open the public hearing after you guys have discussed it.
For some reason, I don't really feel comfortable with that. I mean, I think what Oren said about, there's a lot of documentation with this. Can't we just, I mean, it's within our bounds and we're not really doing anything destructive to actually look at the documentation in a meeting next month and then have a public hearing in May, because then we'll have enough time to request anything that's missing by then. It seems
But the documentation could be sent to us during this month. The reason I'm saying this is because I gather from both parties that they need a determination sooner rather than later. And we're pushing this off when we could, within these strictures imposed, we could make it faster for them. That's my only reason.
I don't know that that's entirely, I mean, I think one party might want a determination as fast as possible. I think the other one who actually filed the appeal, I don't think she's asking for a determination to be made quickly. And rushing a determination on this seems irresponsible. So,
I have another comment. Another meeting before the month may not be possible to get a quorum. I know a week from tonight, I have a conflict.
yeah.
So I think it might be hard to get everybody together.
What, for next month?
No, for next month we.
No, you suggested something before next month. If I
No, no.
No,
No, we're going to get all the information together. I mean, it's going to be sent to us. So we're going to have the information to review before the next meeting.
We could email about it.
So
That's enough.
my thought on this initially is just that to not make a motion for a public hearing for the next month, even though it would be saying that we may receive this information and say no public hearing is necessary, even though I believe it is. So I don't see any harm in, as long as we receive all this information, and as Abby has stated, we could have a conversation about this before the public hearing actually is opened, that then we can move into the public hearing, and we still have these 62 days after a public hearing to discuss it further. That's my thought.
Wait, we can't, you mean have the meeting and then open it for a public hearing after the meeting?
Yes.
Rather than.
No, not after the
Well,
meeting.
no, we can begin the meeting, we can have a discussion regarding it, as long as, and see that everybody has received the proper documentation, have the public hearing at the same meeting, receive any further documentation and argument, and then we still have 62 days from that point to make our determination on it.
So then you're suggesting we
As opposed to
schedule a
waiting-
public hearing?
That's what I'm suggesting, as opposed to waiting till the next month, reviewing it, then scheduling a public hearing from that point.
That's only it's only a difference of a month, and it's going to take us time to get all this documentation to begin with.
Why is that?
So, well, I mean, we're going to
I
have
believe
to
that much of the documentation has been already received. It just hasn't made it to us as a board because it has been within literally the past days.
Right, so then we can look at it and discuss it. And if we want to do a site visit, we can do a site visit, and we can come to the next meeting with a sense. I mean, maybe it's for me, since this is my first year in this board, but it would seem to me that something with 50 plus units where there's so much controversy, we want to be careful that we understand everything. So
I would just also like to remind that we also want to be careful that we are not affecting anyone's due process rights by unreasonably delaying things. So if you guys want, I can discuss, certain aspects of it, but I do believe that the chairman has proposed a very reasonable, the rest of, as I said, this doesn't even need to be on an agenda, procedurally as an appeal.
Daniel, let's go check it out. It's a total, it's gotta be a field play. 58 units sounds like a lot. But you gotta go, I have no frame of reference for the property. I've never been down the road. So obviously, we should.
And that's why
we get to go in groups of 3 or less or something. Like,
no, we can we can go as a board. We don't have to go as groups of 3 or less.
Yeah, we've never done a field trip.
As long as we don't have opinions. I'll show up on my mountain bike because
we've never done a field trip.
It seems like we have a semi-divided board right now, and this could be a chance to exercise the quorum of if our board feels this is necessary, or if that the majority feels that it's unnecessary to schedule the public hearing.
Well, the other thing is you can always, as he said, from the closing of the public hearing, you have 2 months to basically make a decision. So you can still continue to consult with each other before making any kind of decision on Glenn's determination. If you don't feel you have enough information following the public hearing.
But you're not saying don't schedule a public hearing. You're saying schedule a public hearing.
My recommendation would be scheduling, and that's based on a lot of the interesting claims of violating people's due process rights with applications by overly delaying them. That the town is
that's not the intention here at all.
So that's basically more or less why, keeping things moving at a reasonable pace, which is what's required under the statute, is, if we can make a record saying that we have a reasonable basis to, kick it out another month, even though procedurally the statute doesn't even require an agenda meeting, let alone 2 agenda meetings. That's one thing. But I think that if we follow the chairman's recommendations, schedule it next month. If you're not comfortable, you still have 60 days. You guys can still continue to discuss the matter, and you don't have to vote on anything until you are comfortable on voting.
Okay.
I agree with that. I agree with that solution.
I see that JB, you have your hand raised again. Is that correct or just left over?
That's just left over at this point. I mean, just a couple things. I mean, if you want me to get into the property, the size of the property, and 50 rooms being on 60 acres, more or less.
I think again, this is stuff for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to shut you down.
Absolutely, but no, absolutely fine with me.
Barry, you had your hand raised again?
Yeah, my only concern is really water usage. That's a pretty big amount of cabins. So there's going to be water flowing into it, of course, also discharging. So where does the water come from that's flowing into it?
Unfortunately, this isn't although I respect your concerns, that's not a matter that's before our board at the moment. We don't have any determination over that. We're just discussing the one issue.
No, Josh, we should get all the information we can. This is on our agenda tonight.
We should, but I think this is all stuff that's been worked out with the site. I would assume on the site.
You guys can't turn yourself into a planning board. There is one issue and one issue before you. That is Glenn's determination as to the use of the cabins and whether or not the determination that it's a cabin development is appropriate.
Right, but under that, Matt,
you guys can't make yourselves the planning.
if that's 21040D4, then I mean that includes whether the water and supply and sewage disposal are in compliance too. So wouldn't it make sense that
usage? Yeah, so basically, you need to if you look at what it says for cabin development, and I will write you guys up a memo to go through, and basically, if you don't agree that the usage or the use proposed meets the criteria that Glenn basically said for the use that Glenn approved it as, or that he basically said the determination was, then you overturn it. If it does, you don't overturn it.
Got it.
Pretty simple thing, but it's not, you can't turn yourself into the planning board and start basically going through, a full site plan review.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I think might be an issue, because if it's supplied by Rolling Meadows Water Corporation,
it is not.
Then I don't care.
I can definitely attest that it is not.
Okay, then I really don't care. I mean, they're the 10th most expensive water company in the entire United States. In case you want to know.
That's another.
Oh,
Let's not get into that.
Because we're all stars.
Okay.
I had another question. I went to do a.
Also, that's not a true statement.
Oh. I went to do a site visit yesterday, and at the end of Heritage Drive, and everything is chained off, no trespassing, do not enter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and there's nobody around that I could see that would allow you to get in. So
we have to get permission.
A site visit is not in the cards unless we
get a permission from the owner. We can get permission from a representative of the owner.
How do we do that?
Well, the owner's here, so we just ask him.
Not to mention the real.
I have no idea how to ask them.
I believe as the zoning board of appeals, we have the right to survey property at our leisure without actually obtaining permission, if I'm not mistaken.
I think if we're going to be totally fair about it, we would ask him to turn up his sound system or whatever about as loud as it goes, and we survey it from the road, because that's the vantage point that the public observes it. So it's not totally ridiculous to not enter the property. You can observe it from the vantage point of the neighbors and get an objective opinion of how the neighbors experience this property. So you could ask the neighbors for a sense as well. You don't necessarily need the owner.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, but wait a minute.
I think we're having a much too much discussion about this at the moment. If there's any further legitimate questions as to the application, let's hear them certainly. But I am going to at this point move that we schedule a public hearing on this matter for April 8th, is it? April 8th. And let's go 7:30.
I will second that.
All in favor? Visual or verbal confirmation? We have Alex, Oren, Abby, myself, Len and Yana, Art as well. Len and Yana are
no.
Opposed.
Opposed.
I think we
Opposed.
should take more
I'm
time.
opposed.
I don't think it's unreasonable to consider this with all of the stuff that's already been created, all the documentation, and to understand more about it. And I don't even know what mobile cabins are. I mean, I feel like I'm really in the dark.
Let's, he's,
Okay.
let's
Well,
ask
this
if
is
we, let's
information
ask
that
if
we will
we're-
receive at the public hearing, but I don't believe that the mobile cabins are what we are discussing at the moment. Either way, we have 5 approved and 5 yay, 2 nay. Is that correct?
Would it be possible to get a roll call on that, please? Thank you.
Yes, I believe myself, Joshua vote chairman, Abby is a yay, Abby Gross, that is, and Oren Shands is a yay, Alex Mara is a yay. Who am I missing here? Art is a yay. Nay is Yana Martin, and nay is Len Cleveland. Did I not know your last name this whole time? I've been on the board for so long. Sure, our secretary is asking to add something.
I have sent everything I have received. Accompanying Lynn's application, there's no letter, it's just the form that I sent you. And you should see, there's nothing explaining anything than what she typed on her application. And today, I got a packet, a huge packet, which will go out to you tomorrow.
So Doris is just reiterating that she, at the time that we received our packets and they were mailed to us within the 2-week time frame, she